Over to our next amazing speaker for today, which is Jennifer Febel. So, Jennifer, if you want to turn on your sound and your video. Hi, Jennifer.
Good morning.
And where are you joining us from today?
I am in Bradford, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes north of Toronto.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to introduce you. And if you have a PowerPoint, you can feel free to throw that up on the screen as well.
Wonderful.
So, you are not broken. This has become Jennifer's personal and professional mantra, and one that she intends to spread to as many people as possible. As a mentor, coach, author, and speaker, Jennifer offers alternative care for anyone suffering from feelings of depression, anxiety, or panic who isn't finding the healing they want through traditional mental health services and are sick of the CBT medication talk therapy merry-go-round. In her classes and retreats, Jen specializes in bringing a mixture of humor, honesty, and personal truths to help inspire a new perspective on health, growth, and change. And she loves to combine her love of all things nerdy and sciencey with a little infusion of woo-woo spirituality. So who is Jen? She is someone who has walked the path of brokenness and lived to tell the story. She is someone who has experienced a dark night of the soul and lived there for over 13 years. She is someone who has been told over and over again that she was broken. And yet here she is, stronger than before, unbroken. Jennifer candidly shares her story in the hopes of inspiring others to know that no one is broken and that everyone can heal. Please welcome our next amazing speaker for today, Jennifer Febel.
Thank you so much, Charla, for organizing this event. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Yes, my name is Jen Febel of livelifeunbroken.com. And today I want to talk to you about why being nice is killing you. Because this is something I certainly didn't know. In fact, isn't that kind of the goal? Aren't we told? Be nice, play nice, learn how to be nice to people. And I was the epitome of nice. And on the outside, everything was wonderful, but inside, I was slowly dying. And a big part of my healing journey started when I learned how to stop being nice. So, why is this important? It's important because, believe it or not, being nice is often in direct conflict with being compassionate. And this is something we're going to go a little deeper with. Being nice is a form of manipulation, and that one kind of stings a little. And at the end of the day, being nice is lying to yourself and is lying to others. And that's a problem because when we do this, when we are nice, we tend to start to feel disconnected. And so I want to give you a little bit more information. So first, let's back up a second and talk about what does it mean to be nice. Now, this is something years ago, I was at a training and we were talking about this concept, and we decided that NICE actually is an acronym, and it stands for Not in Compassionate Empathy. And this is something that I really began to understand long ago, back in the early days of my career, before I was an author and a coach and a mentor and a speaker. I actually started my career working in animal hospitals. And I started off, the very first hospital I was hired to work in, I was hired as a receptionist. And I was hired at the same time as another woman named Yvonne. And you get hired together, you go through the training together. So we became friends at work and everything was going well. And then after a few months, I was promoted to office manager. And now it became my job to give Yvonne feedback. But she was my friend. And so I wanted to be really nice about it. And while Yvonne was a wonderful person, she was not the best employee, frankly, and she used to spend a lot of time just sitting and reading books. And animal hospitals are hospitals, so there's no time to just sit and read. There's always something to be cleaned or filed or discarded or something. And so my boss used to come up to me and he'd say, hey, I noticed that Yvonne's not really doing anything. Can you go tell her to do something, like she has to do something? And I wanted to be nice, so I would go up to her and I'd kind of dance around. I wouldn't be outright and say, hey, go clean something. I'd be like, hey, you might wanna not read your book and go do something. She's like, no, I'm okay here. I'm like, okay, because I wanted to be nice. And time went on, and my boss came up to me again. He's like, hey, she's still not doing anything. Did you talk to her? I'm like, yeah, I talked to her because I had. And he's like, well, I need you to talk to her again. Okay, not a problem. hey, Yvonne, maybe you want to do something. And again, I was nice. And she's like, no, no, it's okay. And okay, and time went on. And then one day my boss came up to me and he said, you've spoken to her multiple times. She's still not doing anything differently. I need you to go fire her. And I had to fire my friend. And it was in that moment that I realized that in being nice, in trying to spare her hurt feelings, in not being honest about her performance and giving her feedback that would actually help her, I had cost her her job. And so while I was nice, it wasn't compassionate. The compassionate thing would have been to be honest with her. The compassionate thing would have been to give her feedback that would have made a difference to her. But instead, I chose nice. And that was the day that I vowed that I wasn't going to be nice anymore. And that really was a turning point for me. So, what does it mean to be compassionate? Being compassionate is about learning how to show up authentically. When we're nice, we're not doing it because we want the other person to feel good. We're doing it because we want them to like us. We are doing it out of fear. Being nice is not an act of compassion because it's not about the other person. But when you're being compassionate, you're showing up authentically in all your messy humanness. You are allowing people to know you, which does require a level of vulnerability, which is why we'll choose nice over compassionate as often as possible, because vulnerability feels vulnerable and we'll do whatever we can to get away from that. Being compassionate is about considering other people's perspectives only after you've considered your own. And this is something I'm looking at all of you in the group who, if you identify as an empath, this is for you. And, holla, we're really good at feeling other people's feelings and knowing what's going on inside of other people. And when I'm working with my one-on-one clients, I always like to check in and say, when you're in someone else's space, feeling the feelings and being, okay, what are they thinking? What do I need to do to make them like me? When you're in their space, who's in yours? Probably no one, which means you've abandoned yourself. And then we wonder why we then start to notice abandonment and betrayal everywhere around everywhere around us is because we did it first. When we are nice, we abandon ourselves. We put ourselves in someone else's shoes and we forget to get back into our own energy and consider, what do we want? Where am I in this relationship? If you are erasing yourself from your life in the name of niceness, it's going to come back and haunt you, I promise you. Being compassionate is about knowing what you need and asking for what you need. And this is a really big one because most of us have no idea what we need. That's why we get into relationships with other people, right? I don't know what I need. You figure it out. And the other person's like, is this what you want? We're like, no. Okay, well, is this what you want? No. And then they keep doing this. Eventually, we're like, see, no one understands me. When we're being nice, we feel misunderstood. We feel very lonely. We feel very isolated. And what we have to realize is that we're doing it to ourselves. And so being compassionate is about knowing and asking for what you need or want, which, yes, means you have to do the legwork and actually know what you want. And this is why we also like to choose nice, because that feels icky. And being compassionate is about putting yourself first, always. I love this whole idea of, well, I don't want to be selfish. So let's break down the idea of selfish for a moment. So if you study linguistics, which I have, the suffix ish at the end of the word means kind of or more or less. So if I were to say that the wall behind me is purple-ish, you would know that it's purple mostly, but there's other colors mixed in there. If I were to say that the color on the slide at the top is pink-ish, you get an idea that it's mostly pink, but there's other stuff mixed in. When we are self-ish, we are meant to be mostly about ourselves, but with other stuff mixed in. And there is a big difference between self-first and self-only. And we tend to think it's the same thing. Self-only, toxic, problematic, pathological, don't want to do that. Self-first, necessary. If you're not putting yourself first because you're trying to be nice to everyone else, you're going to get into a really nasty cycle of passive aggressive, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So if that's compassion, then what's nice? When we are nice, we are really good at giving in to keep the peace. We will do whatever we can to not rock the boat. We will stay silent. We will squelch our own opinions. We will turn off our ability to know what we want because we'll tell ourselves it doesn't matter. We will rationalize our emotions instead of feeling our emotions because we don't want to rock the boat. Being nice is about always giving others the benefit of the doubt. And this is something that I learned as a child. For me, love meant being nice. Love meant giving up everything that you are for the other person. Isn't that what every Hallmark movie tells us? And, I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And what I've learned is that when I am in this place of niceness, not only am I not showing compassion for myself, I'm not showing any compassion for the other person. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not being truthful. Being nice means always appearing positive, upbeat, optimistic, and happy no matter what you're actually feeling inside. And when we put on this mask in order to be out in public, and then we come home and we take off that mask, we start to feel like we're not part of our lives, because we're not. When we are being nice, we aren't actually being ourselves. We are being what we want other people to think we are and what we think they need from us. And we'll do whatever we need to do to make them like us, but we're not being authentic. Being nice means taking care of and looking after people. And this is a very fine line to walk. We are meant to look out for people, but not look after people. And the way I understand this in my head is, let's say you're out somewhere and you see someone and they fell down and they're sitting on the floor. Now, if I take my hand and I reach it out and I pull them up, what have they learned? That they don't know how to stand up on their own, that they're just stuck sitting there until someone comes along. So when I look after someone, I teach them that they don't have the power to actually change their own life. When I look out for someone, that's when I can go up to the person on the floor and I can put my arm out. I can say, here's my arm. I'm going to stabilize it. You reach out and I will assist you in standing up. And then they learn that they can stand up on their own. They might need some support, but they can do it. When we are being nice, we are teaching people that they are powerless. And we are teaching ourselves that we are powerless, because when we treat others that way, of course, we're going to learn the lesson ourselves. And being nice is about putting yourself last. I hear so many women, men as well, but particularly women, we're really good at this one, who are saying, oh yeah, I will do self-care once A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z and beyond is done. If you're always at the bottom of your to-do list, I promise you're going to be slowly getting very angry inside and becoming what I like to call an angry, nice girl. And this is what that looks like. So we all know about this idea of passive aggressive, but what is that? When we are nice, when we are putting everyone else's needs first, when we are focused on what the other person wants, what they want from us, what they need, when we're all up in their energy, we're on the passive side of the equation. And this works for a while and people love us. Oh, people love when we are nice. But inside, we are pissed, because inevitably at some point you're going to start to be like, well, what the hell? What about me? I'm helping everyone else, but no one's there for me. And we start to get angry. And then we start to push ourselves to the aggressive side of the equation, and where we start to focus on our own needs. We have this moment of, you know what? Screw everyone else. I'm going to do what I want. F them. And we stay in this place and we're like, yeah, I'm getting stuff done. And then we start to feel the guilt and the shame of always putting ourselves first, of not considering other people, because that's not in alignment with who we are. And then that shame thrusts us back over to the passive side, where we put all of our hopes and needs into the other person. We put all of our energy into knowing them, and then we get angry that no one's paying attention to us, and then that shifts us to aggressive, and then the shame. And we will play this dance between rage and shame forever. And this is kind of where I got to in my life, and I didn't realize that this was the case. My journey officially started back when I was 19, because that's when I received my official diagnosis, which at the time was 7 different mental health diagnoses, which under the umbrella of nice, but in the psychology world, I was diagnosed as anorexic, as bulimic, I was diagnosed with major depression, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, suicidal ideation, and self-harm, which means, yes, there are scars on my body that I put there. I was told by multiple doctors that I was broken, that I would never get any help, and I thought that the solution was to just learn to be more nice, learn to just stuff it all down further. If I can just hide all this pain from myself and focus on everyone else around me and focus on all the gratitude and blessings in my life, I'll be okay. But then I start to get really mad. And I didn't like that feeling. I was angry at the people around me for not noticing my pain. I was angry at myself for not voicing my pain. But I never learned how to get to the aggressive side of the equation. I just stuck and sat and spun on the passive side to my own detriment. It was in learning and healing and growing from this experience that I learned to find that place of balance in the middle, and that is assertive and compassionate. When we are being compassionate, we are thinking about ourselves and the other person. It is not meant to be an or, either myself or other people. It is meant to be an and. And it's funny, so I run weekly healing circles, which I will give you all the information on in a moment. And I talked about this one week, and one of the women at the end, she puts up her hand, and she did a little question, and she's like, I showed up as assertive, I spoke my truth, and the other person called me a bitch. I'm like, cool, all right, so were you being assertive or were you being aggressive? She goes, I was being assertive. I'm like, amazing, how do you know? And she went, oh. See, when we're used to being passive, we will think aggressive is assertive, because that is how we pull ourselves out of that passive feeling, that hopelessness, that abandonment of self. But assertive, if every time you speak your truth, everyone runs from you, chances are you're more on the aggressive side of the equation. Assertive is about being compassionate. It's about sharing who you are in all your human messiness with the people around you. When we are being nice, we are being manipulative because we are doing it so that others will like us, which means we are doing it not from a place of authenticity, but from a place of fear. And I promise you, the other person can smell that a mile away. So some key things to remember. Remember that being nice is about being passive, which only sets you up for a cycle of anger, of hurt, of depression. Depression is almost always connected to repressed anger. We are sad because we're feeling powerless. We are sad because we are angry. And so when we are in this nice phase, when we are really good at being nice, we're being passive and we're setting ourselves up for this cycle. Remember that being nice is manipulative, and it robs others of the opportunity to actually know you. And it robs you of the opportunity to know how you want to show up in the world. It robs you of the opportunity of feeling connected to other people. When we are being nice, we lose that connection. We sacrifice that connection so that others will like us. And remember that being nice is an act of fear, not of compassion. I allowed Yvonne to lose her job because I was afraid she wouldn't like me. That may have been nice, but it certainly wasn't compassionate. And so learning how to show up in your life in a compassionate way means you have to be willing to act from a place of knowing yourself and sharing yourself with others, not from a place of fear. Now, in my one-on-one work, in my private practice, I help people figure out how to stop being nice. And of course, the key is, and you guys probably heard this all before, boundaries. Now, boundaries, we tend to think that boundaries are about saying no, or about sharing how we feel. And that is a surefire way to piss off everyone around you and to feel like you're not getting anywhere, and then to say, never mind, I'm not going to set any boundaries again in my life. Boundaries are not about sharing how you feel. They're not about saying no. Boundaries are about sharing what you need, which means you must know who you are and what you need, which means you have to stop focusing on everyone else and actually give yourself a chance to know who you are from a place of compassion, so you can share who you are from a place of compassion. Now, if you are wanting to connect with me, some things that I offer every week, I am offering a virtual healing circle. These are done live via Zoom. It's every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. These are 100% free. You all don't need any kind of RSVP. You can come when you want to. You just need to register in order to get the Zoom link, and the link for that, the way to access that is at livelifeunbroken.com/circle. Every week you'll get a weekly reminder with the Zoom connection, and afterwards you will get a recap of all the information. Each week we start with a candle meditation to remind us to shine our light so bright that we ignite the light in others, because of course at the end of the day that really is our only goal in life. Followed up by, we'll have a quick discussion about different topics each week. Sometimes we talk about being nice and compassion. Sometimes we talk about more wooey things. Next week we're going to be talking about elemental beings. What are fairies and dragons, and how can we use this in a practical way in our life? So anything related to the emotional, mental, or spiritual realm are things that we'll talk about. And this is then followed by a 25-minute guided meditation. I created these healing circles when COVID first started because I am a big advocate for distance doesn't have to mean disconnection. And while, yes, the physical world, depending on where you are in the world, might be on hiatus a little bit longer because of what's going on right now, that doesn't mean we can't still connect emotionally, connect mentally, and connect energetically. And so these circles are a way to find connection, find your tribe, stay in a place where you are learning the skills of compassion for self and others. And each week when I run these circles, the talk that we go over is recorded live and is then published as my podcast. So I invite you to check out my podcast. It's called Bridging the Spiritual Gap. It is available on Spotify and iTunes. You can catch up on past topics. There is one called Why Being Nice is Killing You. So if you wanted to get a little bit more deeper information about what I talked about today, you can certainly go there. And of course, if you had any questions, if you needed to reach out to me, if you wanted to learn more about me, my story, and the work that I do, I invite you to please visit me online on my website at www.livelifeunbroken.com or through email or through social media. And I see my share just stop. Apparently my PowerPoint just kind of stops itself, which is helpful. So like I said, I am Jen Febel of livelifeunbroken.com. I am going to put all my information in the chat. I see lots of activity going on in there. I will do my best to respond to everyone. And I thank you all for joining me, and I wish you a life of compassion.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was fantastic. And yes, you have lots of comments to read in the chat. Be sure to throw those links in there. And yeah, thanks so much for an amazing talk. As always, Jennifer has spoken on the Fearless stage a number of times, and it's always wonderful to have you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much.
So yes, head to the chat to sign up for the things that Jennifer just chatted about. And of course, if you have any questions for her, feel free to throw those in the chat as well. So I'm going to turn things over to our next amazing speaker for today, the one